Looking good.
All right, just heading over to the channel.
Did you do a quarantine shave? Your beard's looking tight.
I got a haircut too. That's the main problem.
Looking good.
Let's see. Looking for the stream. Live now. That's the one.
Your business idea.
Oh, and I have monetization on for it. Woohoo. That'll get me a 6-pack of beer eventually.
What? Depends on the beer.
Oh, yeah. Cheap beer. Okay. And somewhere I have a slide deck. Hopefully that survived the reboot.
All right. I've got the YouTube open, so I'll handle the questions from there.
Awesome. Just sharing my screen, everyone. Back off. I'm a professional. Get no end of enjoyment out of that Ghostbusters quote.
Somebody needed to.
Yeah. I actually have a autographed Ghostbusters film cell. So it's on my wall. All right. So here we go. So thank you, everyone, for joining us for SEO Fight Club, episode 58, I think. I kind of lose track. So this week, we're going to talk about, was there a big April update? That's the big question. And if there was, what was in it? So we're going to take a look at some of what we do when we take a look at an update. But with that, we'll get into a little boilerplate first. So normally I would ask Clint, hey, what's going on with SEO this week? But Clint isn't in yet. Let me check the participants, last chance. So you must be fighting an SEO fire this morning. Hopefully it's nothing too bad.
The deadliest of fires.
Yeah. But Clint rebooted SEO this week. So he has a new show format, and he kind of went off script with a unboxing of Cora Lite, where he found out that there's not enough CPU to both run Cora Lite and to stream HD video. So had to hop in and run the Cora Lite running portion from my computer so he could continue to stream video. The funny part of that was, as soon as he stopped streaming video, Cora worked on his system just fine. So, of course, the second you try to present it to the public, it won't work by default. So that was entertaining, but it was cool. People enjoyed seeing what was going on with it. I'm really looking forward to Clint's new format where he does audits live, as well as a reduced version of the news coverage, where instead of trying to cover all the biggest stories, he's just going to cover what looks the most interesting. And I think that's really cool, because what's interesting to Clint tends to be what's interesting to me. There's good overlap there. So definitely check out his show. It's a wealth of information. Internet Marketing Gold. Have you heard about this thing, Kyle?
Your slide is old. I updated the one last week. That should say 1,800 members.
And we're growing.
So one thing I wanted to mention, this week is one of our testing weeks, the testing roundup, and the tests are ready and then they're all set to go. And this week, not to be a tease, but we show a new testing method, a new way to test the SERPs that I don't think I've ever seen before.
Oh, that's going to be nice.
It's actually very exciting. Ted, you got a test in this week. I have a test in this week as well, and there are a couple other good ones. And but it's really fun. I love new ideas. You know, when you have just a completely new thought, something like, especially something that seemed so simple, and then you're like, oh, that just makes sense. So that's what we got going on, a brand new testing method, and I think it'll knock your socks off.
Nice. Yeah, my test isn't as glorious as some of the other tests. Mine is more of a womp womp test because it's taken this thing that dozens of people love and respect and use and build their whole business around and just reveals what a piece of garbage it is. So my test is kind of the depressing side of the test. I'm really excited to see a new testing method. Who can you tell me who did that test?
Joe.
Joe
Very
Priest.
smart dude.
All right. Well,
we
this
poached
is gonna be
Joe. We poached him, and he's actually now doing some work for High Voltage. We're like, hey, buddy, you're a smart guy.
Yeah, we got a plate of cookies over here. Just get in the van.
Yeah, no, it's one of those things where you see someone like, yeah, you know, we got to get this guy on our team. Like, what can we do? So he's not full time with us. Some small projects, and hopefully that grows to more.
Yeah, Joe's incredible. I mean, I don't fault you at all for getting him on board. That's what you ought to be doing with good testers.
Yeah.
All right, so.
Oh, I'm sorry, Ted. Can I make one small?
Yeah.
I'm going to show more about this next week when I put some slides together. But our new extension just got improved in the Chrome store about 25 minutes ago. So we launched a huge update to the POP extension, and it just went in. I've noticed that it is not updated in my browser. So what I did is I undid mine and then reloaded it, and the new extension is there. So for POP users, it's a huge.
What's the big feature add? What's the
big feature is you can now edit within WordPress using POP. So with the Chrome extension, you turn it on and you can edit within WordPress. But get this, you can edit within pretty much any CMS: Wix, Shopify, Squarespace,
nice,
Joomla, Magento. Well, not Joomla yet. Joomla soon. Magento and Google Docs, all through the extension. We're pretty proud of it.
I'd imagine if you can identify the text area, that you could just interact with any editor.
That's the concept. But we're really excited about it. I'll do some screenshots and show it next week just so people can see it. But for those, I know that some of the people listening are users of our tools. And so if you want to check it out, I would go to the Chrome store, uninstall the one you have, and then reinstall. And then you do need to close Chrome and reopen it, and then it's good to go.
Well, that's going to make for a lot of happy workflows.
That's the idea. You don't have to toggle between pages like recommendation, edit. Now it's all right there.
All right. So the notion of an April update, do you think that Google had an unannounced April update?
Well, Ted, I follow this amazing tool put together by a guy named Ted Kabitis, and the tool has accurately predicted the last two major updates of 2020: the core update that they announced in January, and then also the GMB Smackdown update that they did. Was that in March?
I forget. I've been so head down in refactoring this tool set to do more and better that I kind of missed a couple weeks of important information.
For a baseline and perspective, and the core update, so on your system, it's normalized to 100 points a score, and the core update hit in your system at a 45. And it was either the Thursday or Friday before your system found it, and then Google announced the update on that next Monday. So it was a 3-ish and some change day warning that this update was coming, and that was at a 45. Then your system hit a 46, and was the massive Maps and GMB update that happened. And then I know that your system just hit a 50.
Yeah,
right?
60, I think, over 60.
Which is huge. So like if and we know core updates are obviously core, but then we know the Google updates constantly. You know, there are little tweaks here and there, weekly, daily, sometimes. But these types of updates are a little more rare, and they also usually have massive impact. So they haven't announced it yet, but I'm feeling pretty good that something's coming down the pipe.
Well, let's take a closer look. I'll ask you to turn off your camera. Keep your mic on so you can still comment, though. All right. So we'll compare the January core update. Can you see my screen all right?
Yes, looks great.
Okay. So we'll compare the January core update to the April core update, ? And the reason I wonder, is it a core update, is it's eerily similar to me at a glance. So this is the non-scientific, non-mathematical part where I go, wow, there was a ramp up, there's this spiky plateau, a big dip, and then there's this kind of other plateau with a dip in the middle. Well, you know, here's a ramp up, here's a spiky plateau, here's a second plateau with a dip in the middle. So
just in case people aren't familiar with this, this is several different weather tools overlaid on top of your tool, which is predictive.
Yes.
And so the idea is the green line is the predictive tool that you've created. And the idea is that if something happens, your tool pings first, then the weather usually follows.
Yes, exactly. So we see like the deployment of an update because we're not looking at ranking fluctuations. We're looking at DevOps tells in Google's cloud infrastructure. And when we see certain activity, we go, oh no, it looks like Google's reprocessing a lot of data. And then typically after we see that activity, then all the other weather services, the non-green lines, start to move.
Mm-hmm.
And so we see a similar pattern between the January core update and what we saw in April. And so the magnitude, the kind of look and feel of the curves, they feel like similar events in both scale and shape.
And I'm sorry, Ted, just for clarification, what are the other tools that are listed on here?
So we have Rank Ranger. These are all websites that have weather tools that are publicly available. So Rank Ranger, Advanced Web Ranking, Cognitive, SERPworks, Bright Local. And then we have two IMG tools here. The dark green is the legacy system that we've been using all along. We never took it offline. The light green is the new refactored system. The difference between the light green and the dark green is they're exactly the same. They're just 5 minutes offset from each other.
Why would you do that?
Well, before in the past, they were a half an hour offset from each other. And we realized that where they diverge is just a half hour difference in the readings. And so we wanted to get them closer together. And we found out that you could actually miss small updates because updates can technically deploy faster than 30 minutes if they're small enough in scope.
Sure.
So we changed our intervals. So it's now every 10 minutes for each one, but they're 5 minutes offset. So every 5 minutes, it's System 1, System 2, System 1, System 2. And so we're getting more samples, keeping both systems alive, and we're learning about the nature of Google updates by having two systems. So it's kind of a cool enhancement.
Sure.
But yeah, you know, again, we see these similar shapes, this big spike in a plateau, short duration plateau, and then a long duration plateau with a dip in the middle. Big spike, kind of the short duration plateau, long duration plateau with a dip in the middle. So that's, you know, it's interesting that these April updates, and this could be multiple updates that just coincidentally kind of make the same shape. And the January stuff was multiple updates that kind of made this shape, but it's just weird that it feels so familiar. So really, when this happened, we were like, hey, this is a core update. We should probably alert this. And I was kind of asleep at the wheel during, a week or so of this area here. And so when I got the refactor online and I started looking at the reports, was this event right here on the 12th. And on the 13th, we were alerting the IMG premium users, hey guys, we're in the middle of something big. So we had kind of a late alert, but we did alert this event. And later on the 20th, we actually got the first press. There's remarkably no press about this event. So it seems like all the normal outlets were asleep at the wheel. I know that Barry was taking a vacation, which is probably why he was so late. But the net effect was that if you were an SEO that looks to SEO news to alert you to updates, the first you would have heard about any of this was April 20th. And the first we reported on it in IMG was April 13th. So we kind of broke a record. We gave our users 7 days advance notice over the, typical way people find out about updates. So that was pretty big. Now, the question becomes, what can you do with 7 days of advance notice? So, the things that I advise people to do is to manage expectations, with your clients, with your employer. Hey, something is happening. It has nothing to do with the SEO we've been doing. This is just Google doing what Google naturally does, which is to change search over time. There may be some volatility. It's not in response to what we do. It's just Google is changing. And so we're going to let you know how that unfolds. And then you also know to be on the lookout, to keep an eye out for any sort of volatility or impact to the business. You can delay big SEO projects because you don't want to do something that you could potentially get blamed for on the outcome when the outcome is caused by Google's update activity. So if you can, you want to do your big domain migration not during a time Google is doing a big update, because you're going to think that your domain migration was the cause of the loss of revenue or traffic. And it might not have been. It might have been because Google changed the rules of the game. So if you can delay big SEO projects, you'll have a better idea as to whether or not the outcome of the thing you're changing was caused by the change instead of the update. Another thing you can do is that if you know you need revenue to make payroll or to pay bills, then you can mitigate the risk of the update by investing in other channel marketing, whether that's pay-per-click or social or more email list campaigns. You can say, until we know the outcome of this update, we can hedge the bet by investing in other channel marketing a bit more than we normally do. So you modify your portfolio to account for the uncertainty. Not all businesses can do that, but if your business can, that's a great way to use the lead time. And then, of course, probably the most important thing SEOs can do with the lead time is to get a last minute before the update baseline of everything. Because after the dust settles, you're going to need that really good baseline to do a before and after the update comparison. And most people, they get caught off guard. It's like the event's already happened and I didn't get a baseline before the event. So can somebody tell me how it changed? If you get that baseline, you can check how things changed for yourself. And it has the best context because it's your websites and your keywords instead of looking at somebody else in a different industry who happened to get baselines for their keywords and their websites.
Ted, a couple of thoughts on these, on the manage expectations and know what to be on the lookout. One thing that you've identified is that rank trackers break often during these times. And so if you have in a situation where you are monitoring your keywords or your rank tracking, or your clients might be, it's a good time to tell them, hey, look, things might get weird. And it's not because our rankings actually dropped. It's because there's a good chance the rank trackers are going to break in the next few days.
Yeah, and typically with algorithm updates, that doesn't happen, but with a different type of update, the HTML updates, that happens all the time. Exactly. And so Google can do different kinds of updates within a month. It's not all the same kind of update.
The other thing too, on the delaying big SEO projects, one of the reasons there is that as we test, we know that when Google is making a lot of changes, they really are reluctant to index new pages. And so we see this with test pages that we put up, and it's like, why won't this index? And it's often because there's a lot of updates happening, and Google limits what they are crawling and what they're adding to their index. So as a result, if you did a huge launch of a whole new category of products or a whole bunch of new pages, or you did a domain migration, and that's all dependent upon Google crawling new pages, that's why you might want to delay, because that crawling might not happen for a bit. They probably need to get through their update, see what happened, dial it back, and then they'll get the crawlers going back at a normal rate.
Yep. And it's hard to know that any of that is going on. So generally, we just say, don't try to do that stuff during a big update. Just wait till after the dust settles, then start. So when we're picking dates to compare, there's kind of several options. There's the view you can take that this is multiple updates. Or we could treat it as a related system of updates. And so if we are treating this as multiple updates, we kind of have 3 start dates in April. And over here, we can see that, just, yesterday, everything turned up again. So it doesn't even look like it's over yet. And if it's not over, then this is bigger than the January core update in terms of duration. It's definitely bigger in terms of the largest peak reading we got in our system, which looks like 66. So that's the largest reading we've ever gotten. So the difference, though, is that in the January, there's more area under the curve, more duration on the reading. And so more magnitude, less duration. What's the net outcome of that? Well, we don't know. We're kind of watching it unfold right now before our eyes. So we anticipate that we'll learn a lot from this event. We don't necessarily know more just yet. So for this event, I want to treat it like a core update. I think it's a system of related events that's similar to the system of events that we saw in January. So start date 1 would be what I'm looking at. I want to know how things changed from, roughly here to roughly here. What's the net effect of all these things combined? And so a little history, I created a tool called Quora. Quora shares data, and it's anonymized factor data so that we can see how Quora factors, behave across thousands of different keywords. And so I've been aggregating daily factor data since January of 2019. I have a list of all of my data folders each and every day. And each day I have a report of what are the strongest correlating factors across all of the shared data. And so we can look from any two dates that we have history for and see how the list changed. And this is some of the deltas between that start date 1 and April 20th. And we could see that, we have these ones that moved a lot in the movers and shakers. So we had an entry and some up 11, up 21, there's a down 18. And so I don't really care so much about the ones that moved a little. I care a lot more about which ones moved a lot, because that seems to be, the biggest impact to the rule set Google is using. And so in those biggest movers and shakers, LSI and sentences, keywords and H1, H2s, entities and H2s, entities and the title tag, the overall amount of page size, content size. This is clean text. So this would be content size. Keywords and H2s, and then a decrease in exact match power. So not that it isn't favorable, it just isn't as strong as it was last month.
So Ted, if you see something like this, the right approach would then be to look at what you had before and what you have now, for example, for LSI words and sentences, and then see where your deficits are and increase. Would that be the idea?
Well, in cutting edge SEO, there's been the emergence of entities. And the funny thing about entities is that they're a lot more commonplace than we give them credit for historically. So it turns out that these keywords, these are the variations that Google makes bold in the search results. And those almost always are entities.
Right.
And LSI words, when you look at them statistically, the ones that seem the most relevant and the most powerful are also the ones that are also entities.
Right.
So when we look at these, there's an argument to be made here that the bulk of this could be addressed with just entities alone. So if you've been on,
you can also make the argument that it's all LSI.
Yeah, well, LSI.
Google doesn't use LSI.
Yeah, LSI and entities, they're largely the same set of words. And, Google's been saying things, not strings, for entity plays. And in past episodes, we've shown you places in Google search where you can visibly see entities at play. So we know Google's using. So, if you've been neglecting entities, this update says you probably ought to start taking them seriously. And especially in headings and titles and sentences. So another thing we can do is, instead of looking at the 30,000 foot view across thousands of queries, which is what you just saw, we can dive into one high competition query and see if it kind of agrees with that information. So one of my calibration keywords is DUI lawyer Los Angeles. The pay-per-click price can get as high as $150 per click. So the websites in that particular keyword desperately want the free organic traffic because it equates to real world dollars of value. And so the competition there is very steep. And so when we compare reports I have for this keyword around the approximate dates, not the exact dates, but roughly, we see that, sentiment was up, sales words in the title is up, definitely a strong up for having your variations and open graph tags. So that's a big takeaway is Open Graph. Here we go. Page size and kilobytes strongly up. And we saw that before with the content size being strongly up. So a bit of agreement there. Looks like partial match and exact match domain exploits are up. So that's an interesting outcome.
Meta. Can you tell the difference between an absolute and a relative URL?
An absolute URL is just a full URL. You're not gonna say that that the href in the a tag. You could say that, oh, it's just this document. I'm not going to give the full URL. It's the same URL, but just changed to this document. That's a relative URL. When you say https:// here's the host name and the path and the full document, that's an absolute URL. And when we see absolute URLs correlating on page, it's because people are exploiting keywords in the host name or in the path or in the document name to get extra TF-IDF score. So when we see this one spike, it's usually because the keyword matches in those absolute URLs are a stronger factor. Title as best, that's a sentiment one, and it is way up. So clearly having best is a good thing right now. JSON LD web page schema, way up. Looks like Google started using that more. The 5 topmost used phrases, having your keywords, that's up. That's important. Meta Twitter content tag. So a lot of metadata appearing in this. And check this out, the body tag size in kilobytes. That is a direct size of the content portion of your web page, excluding the head block. It's up the most. And the reason I suspect this is up the most, if LSI and entities are more important, then having more of them on page should yield good results. And so I would say that there's decent agreement between what we're generally seeing at 30,000 feet and what I'm seeing in specifically this high competition keyword, is that we want more content and we want that content to have more relevant terms in it. And, you know, there's a minor effect here of make sure that your meta tags are well tuned. When I look at HTML updates, which you mentioned earlier, the things that break rank trackers, yeah, Google's been pretty aggressively testing every day different formatted search results. And when they change the format of the search results, that can break your rank trackers. And that can cause you to see, you know, widespread ranking losses because Google couldn't parse this version versus this version. And the thing we tend to see them testing, again, is those fave icons in the search results. And that was also mentioned in the press. But yeah, we're seeing those images come in and out of play. So there is some truth to the fact that you may have seen ranking losses that weren't real because the rank trackers broke. When we look at meta blending updates, so Google is a meta search engine. They're blending lots of different search engines into what you see as the search results. They have ad search and shopping search and local search and image search and video search and all these different search engines that have their own algorithms. They get blended into a result page. And the meta blend that we measure is how much of that is organic web search results. And so we look at how many total links are on the page across the sample and what percentage of those pages was organic web results. And there's a little difference. There's not a lot of difference. So it doesn't look like it was a meta blending update so far. This looks like it was an algorithm update with a lot of aggressive HTML A/B testing. We're still working on search intent updates. We have a system coded for it, and we think we've eliminated all of the edge cases that are unrelated to intent. But now we're waiting for Google to do something where we can detect the change. And it turns out that search intent updates are either very uncommon in a broad sense, or they might even at this point just be like small niche updates that Google makes, in which case they'd probably go unnoticed by our system. But we're still checking every day for broad changes to search intent handling. And we'll keep you updated, but we're not where we want to be yet. We haven't detected those events, and it might be a while before we even get an opportunity. See, Clint is in currently. Let me add him in. So, Clint, if you want to turn on your microphone, excellent. So, first of all, we'll rewind a little bit. Is there anything interesting about SEO this week you wanted to mention?
Oh, we just did a did a walkthrough of Correlate, and you can see the issues that I had with it and how Ted came in and saved me.
Well, it turned out that was likely the video streaming interfering.
Yep.
Is that
Yep, that's exactly what I think it was. Just much for the computer.
too much CPU?
Yep.
And how's the new format coming along?
It's doing good. I made the suggestions to you. I saw that you.
I don't think we've got Clint.
Oh, we got.
Oh, maybe I can't hear him then.
Oh.
Yeah, I hear him.
Oh, okay, good. So, yeah, it's doing. I like the new reports. I've actually been running those all day. I was writing some new schema, and we're doing about 110 reports through it so far, and pulling out entities and stuff. And I like that. And then I saw the changes that you were going to make for the next update, and some of the recommendations that I get. You already got those implemented, which is going to be awesome. I'm looking forward to this.
Yeah, that'll hopefully be soon. How much of the show have you caught? I know you got in late.
Probably about 5 slides back. So
5 slides.
I think it was like 5 slides back. You were going over the graphs and talking about the ups and downs and peaks and valleys.
Yeah. So did you have any impression on whether or not you feel there was a big update this month?
I think I'm just, based off the information, and you announced the original one, and then you announced the second peak. Since then, I've seen all my sites go up.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of good feedback about this one. A lot of people saying that their rankings improved. Not so many hard hit people.
Yeah. My guess is, assuming that everything you're saying is right, and I have no reason to doubt that it's not, is that January was pretty drastic, right? That one slammed a whole bunch of people. And this one seems to me like a data collection. Okay, this is all the crap we broke. Let's fix it.
Yeah, that makes sense. All right, I think we have Kyle back.
He had to refresh. He said you got to promote him again.
I hear everything now. It was so weird. I couldn't hear it when Clint came in.
Yeah. So just weirdness from Remo.
Then all good. One quick refreshy, we're all good.
All right, we will continue. So where we left off, we're still working on detecting search intent updates, but we have a system we believe can do it. We're just waiting for Google to update search intent in a way that we can measure it. So we'll keep working on that type of update detection. So the key takeaways from all of this is that you should join IMG if you want to get the update alerts and the inside analysis. We eventually do update analysis publicly, but it's always after the fact. You don't get it in real time here on the YouTube channel. So if you want to have more timely access to alerts and analysis, you got to join the community, and you get to ask questions and share your stories with other users. The other thing is you need to use that alert time wisely. It's, one thing to get an alert. It's an entirely different thing to actually act on it in a way that can protect your interests and prepare you to respond. And so managing expectations and getting a baseline are probably the two most important things SEOs can do with that alert time. Waiting for updates in the news isn't going to help you. By the time, Search Engine Land or SE Roundtable get around to telling you there was an update, your house has probably already been flattened if it's going to be. So the time to act isn't after the fact, which is how the news is going to do it. The other important thing is that by being able to recognize that something is happening, something's happening right now, we can know to take those snapshots. And because we can take the before and after snapshots, we can tease out clues on how to respond to these events. And the best way to do it is if you get snapshots for your context in SEO, for your URLs, for your keywords. Because I can do it for my keywords, but the update might affect the healthcare industry different than the SEO industry. So you really want those snapshots for teasing out clues to be based on the context of your niche. And, we need to wait for the update to be over. And so this is a problem. I showed you on that chart that it ticked up again today. So this isn't even over. We can't necessarily trust the outcome of our analysis. We need to repeat it when we know definitively that the event is over. So I wouldn't even react yet on this event. A lot of people are asking me about it, but it's not over, and technically we need to wait. So Kyle, Clint, how many times have you been, bit in the rear for not waiting long enough?
Yeah, it gets me. It used to get me all the time. I would overreact and make changes, and then turns out I was actually just doing more harm than good. So I've learned the hard way. Just sit and wait it out. Maybe this is a good time to open and start a new project or something, and something you've been putting off, and just wait and see what happens.
That's the biggest thing, is the impatience factor, where you do something and not realizing that things are going on, and you start to tune or tweak before whatever you did even took any kind of effect.
Yeah.
Maybe we should get Lee to come on. Let's go ahead and turn our cameras back on, and maybe we'll get Lee to come on to talk about how he sees the data and the technology changing the landscape. We'll put him on the spot. So Lee, you want to turn on your mic? Maybe he walked away.
That was a good. Yeah, I'm here.
So Lee, yeah, we can hear you.
All right.
So what do you think of all of this? What do your instincts tell you?
I look at the signals that are being generated. They've historically been very accurate, so I tend to lean towards your interpretation that this ain't over. And I like the that all of the other rank trackers and the weather sensors tend to give us the same signal. They're like, something's going on. It's out there, even if it's not being talked about as broadly. I tend to think there is some movement going on right now, and maybe it's just being hidden because people are too worried about world events to track what's going on with web rankings.
Yep, that's a good notion.
I often think that the people that report on it also probably get a phone call from Google, like, "Hey, we just want to announce an update." So if Google didn't make that phone call, they're kind of in the dark on it as to something actually happening.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so it's always great when Google, says, "Yeah, we did a big update." But even if Google doesn't do that, I still trust the data that something happened. So, we may never get a declaration from Google on this one. They don't announce them all. But, I still believe in the data, especially when it looks like the same characteristics we saw in January. Something happened. So with that, I think that's our show. Were there any questions?
There was one question, and I believe it was answered by Mix. It was already, because Mixmaster was saying, like, what can I do or what can I know? But it was before the whole Prezzo, so I think that was answered. The other ones are not related, but as we always do, I guess we throw these in. What is the most important part for local SEO? I assume that probably has to do with the maps. My vote would be proximity would be the number one factor.
Yeah, I would defer that to Lee because he's done the most recent scientific testing of local and proximity. What do you think, Lee?
I think that the thing about the testing that I have is the most significant factor has been the degree of on-page optimization of the website. Makes the GMB and everything else work better. Backlinks work better. Traffic works better if it's optimized. And for me, that always goes back to entities. But that's where I am with it. So if you have good on-page optimization, on your website, then your local stuff, all your GMBs, they rank better, broader, and and everywhere more wonderful. So that's been my experience. That's what the data says for me.
Love it. Does anyone have any thoughts on the Google Shopping update? And I think that's in reference to today, Google saying that you can list products for free.
I mean, do it. That's free clicks at the top of the search results when those appear. Yeah. So if you don't have your Google Shopping feed built, you really probably want to rush that. That's free advertising budget. Do it.
Do you think that's in response to Amazon in some way? Like, these guys are ripping you off. We will. I mean, it's not directly related, but do you think it has something to do with that?
It could be competitive, but who the hell cares? It's free ad spend if you have products for sale.
I think it's in response. I think because Amazon's increasing their workforce and they're seeing more and more orders now. I think Google's like, well, we need to cash in on this, or we'll be stupid if we don't. Let's do this.
Yeah, they don't want to lose market share.
Yeah, but people hooked on that the traffic, and you get people hooked on that traffic for free, and then you start charging them for it.
Yeah. Well, of course, there's that. It won't last forever, but use it while it's free. That's real money.
Simon's saying that Amazon is cutting their Google ad spend. That's interesting. Mohammed is asking, has anyone seen a sudden boost in their DR, domain rating?
Domain rating, yeah.
My 3 sites have seen plus 20, plus 10, plus 24 increase in DR as per Ahrefs. Could this be something related to an update?
It's really hard to tell. Those are third-party metrics. So the first question I always like to ask is, do you think Google is using DR? Because if Google's not using DR, then that's an issue. Now, can we use these numbers in a way related to what Google's doing? Yeah, the way I try to look at all of those third-party things is they're indicators as to how well does, Moz, Majestic, SEMrush, and Ahrefs, how well do they understand what ranks well? So when those numbers tend to correlate with rank position in Google, it's a good indication that those guys understand what ranks well in Google. But it's also, there's a second part of that maybe they don't understand it well, maybe they just have a statistically relevant sample size. And that's another good thing. If they recently updated their database, those numbers can go up, but it could represent how significant their sample size is. So keep in mind that Google has a database that potentially has up to 200 trillion web pages in it. And they go through those and they figure out what to put in the primary index. These third-party websites tend to have databases that maybe have tens of billions of web pages in it. And that's a much smaller sample size of what Google's using. So, it could be how well they understand what ranks. It could also be how significant their sample size is comparison to what Google's using. So it's complicated.
It would be interesting to see how much of like an Ahrefs DR, their system is dependent upon the actual SERPs that they're monitoring. And if that is a factor, then that could be indicative of updates. If you see those things change.
And Lee, what do you think of my description of that? You're a data guy.
Yeah, I always look at the third party thing and say, if approximating something that Google is doing, then it's pointless.
Well, I don't think it's pointless. I think it's limited as to what it means.
Well, I always go back to, what are we trying to do? Most of the time it's trying to rank in Google. So if it's not it's something that helps give me an indication of how to rank well in Google, then, it's not helpful. At least that's what my psychic says.
Yeah, I view it a different way. I view it as if these, AR, UR, DR, the whole suite of them, if they correlate strongly with rank position in Google, then I know I can trust this data for high competition, high volume keywords.
That is true.
So it's a trust indicator on the data.
This might be the last one from Mike. Hey guys, I'm working with YouTube transcript accordions on a couple of my sites. The entire transcript goes into one P tag. Is there a limit to how much content should go into one P tag?
I've seen 5-hour videos. That would have to be a 5-hour transcript. So I think that could be pretty big. And if it's keyword rich, it'll help your YouTube video rank. And if you have a link back to your website in the cards or in the description, I think I just pissed off Clint. What do you think, Clint?
No, you're good. I was listening.
But now we're getting into effective link building methodologies that I may not want to out. So I've said too much.
Yeah, I think you're good. I think what you probably were leading towards your most people are doing anyway. So I would go ahead and continue with the thought.
No, I'll stop there. We got the juices flowing.
That just doesn't want to get hunted down.
Yeah.
All right, we have one more question that snuck in. I used an expired domain for my business, but the domain has some backlinks from Chinese and Japanese language websites.
Translate.
Will that have an effect on my website's ranking? What can I or should I do? And this person says against that link, or if it's problematic, is there something that they should do?
I found on several occasions in testing where I thought I got something that wasn't used and was random alpha. Turns out it was a previous Chinese website with 2 million, orphan backlinks. Indexing content on that domain was magical. Like all of a sudden Google really cared about my pages. And I thought that was really cool. The downside was that I kept getting lots of obscure traffic from countries that I couldn't service. And so it was kind of a detriment on that side, where I had a bunch of like Asian traffic that I couldn't convert. So, it's one of those things where, if you're getting good sales, keep up with it. But if it's hard to get good conversions, then you might be having the same issue I had, where you were getting a suboptimal targeting because of that past history.
Clint, what were you going to say?
I translate. So everyone, the people, they go through and they filter and they find foreign languages in their expired domains or whatever, and it's spam. I take the time and translate that language. What is it about? And if it's SEO in China, it's still SEO, regardless if it's in Chinese or English, right? So then I'll still use those domains. Where Ted was going with the traffic, I'm not sure that it would be a detriment, maybe a waste of time to have all that extra traffic. But I think Lee's done some testing and showing that traffic is actually helping with some of his his ranking increases. So
Yeah,
I guess it would be
using
depending on where if you have the traffic issue, if that's your issue, then I would say redirect that traffic. We'll find out where it's coming from, and then redirect it to a better page, or to the homepage.
I agree with that. If you're using it for SEO solely, there's value.
Yeah.
But if these are potentially people who will buy your product and then call your phone number for support, you better be able to speak Chinese or Japanese.
I get Google.
Yeah, I agree with Clint. The traffic comments and stuff like that. Spot on. So.
And then on the flip side of that, if you bought an expired domain accidentally and it's Chinese porn, and you're trying to put your plumber site on it, you're gonna have to disavow those links. But I
But that
wouldn't
is
write
an
off the
open door.
domain. Yeah. I wouldn't write off the domain if it's, especially if you have a lot of them, you disavow all of them, and all those other bots and your competitor tools will see all those links, and everyone will think you're stupid, but you're ranking number one. You're ranking with all what looks like a whole bunch of spam, so that your competition's dumb because they're not an ING or SIA, and they go out and spam the shit out of their website because it looked like you did it. You know what I mean? So um, just disavow them and call it a day if they're bad links, if they're not related.
Well, the other thing is, if you've got a ton of Chinese porn links and stuff like that, the other thing you could do is reach out to somebody who has a porn website and see if they want to buy that domain off of you. It work well for them.
Yep.
Still an asset.
All is not
all right.
well.
Well, let's cap it there. If you have any questions and you didn't get them answered, join us. We're in Remo, still chatting. We're going to hang out for a little bit. Join us there, ask questions in IMG or wherever you'd like to ask your questions, but we get to them. So hop on over.
And I just pasted the Remo link in the YouTube chat. So if you go there and create an account, you can come talk to us and network for a little bit.
Sounds good.
All right. Thanks, everyone. See you in Remo.
Bye.